I'm Kyah Jones, and I am from Dobbins Bennett High School.
And I'm Molly Colley. I'm the Northeast Regional Director for Tennessee Suicide Prevention Network.
So through all these hard times right now with everything going on, how do you see it? How is it important to talk about suicide right now, especially with everything going on?
I think that's a really good question, Kyah. So, even though we haven't necessarily seen drastic rises in the number of suicides in our area or anything like that, there's still a lot going on that could be impacting people in a way. And especially if we're talking about looking at our youth here, there's been a lot of changes going on for the last few months. With our teens and kids, this is meaning the cancellation of school. They may have had to miss things that they've been looking forward to, like end of the year trips and prom and graduation. And I'm sure you can understand some of that yourself. And having all that going on and sometimes being isolated and separating from your friends can really have a negative impact for some people on their mental health and how they're feeling about things. The things people normally use to cope, especially again when we're talking about teens, the things that they might normally do, trips to the mall or going to sporting events, those things haven't really been options. So even teens who normally are able to manage their mental health and emotions really well might not have those same tools in their toolbox right now. I also think that it's important to recognize that right now, for some kids and teens, home isn't necessarily a safe place. There might not be enough to eat there. There might be a lot of turmoil and, sometimes even violence in the home. And for a lot of kids and teens, or for some kids and teens, school can be something that you really look forward to, or kind of a respite from that, a break from that. And then knowing that this has been a really stressful time for adults too, when we are talking about how this is impacting kids and teens, Kyah, kids, y'all are aware, right? Your kids are
Yeah.
smart. Teens are smart. You pick up on what's going on in the house. So if your parents or caregivers are stressed, like when people are furloughed and not working or having all the concerns about getting sick and everything else that's going on with COVID-19, you're pretty aware. Kids are aware of what's going on in the house. So that's with all of that going on, I think that it's really important to understand that each of these little things can really pile up. And for some people, it might mean that there is a risk that they might be thinking about suicide or struggling in their mental health in some way.
Yeah, and I agree. I know for some students, school is a safe place for them, and they have teachers they can talk to and their friends, because a lot of students, or a lot of teenagers, they tell their friends more than they tell their parents.
Yeah.
And so when you don't have that, or you can't go hang out with them, it's just hard for them. And some parents get laid off, and it's just a completely different change. And that's a lot to do with it too, I think.
Absolutely. I think you made some really good points there. And it's easy to see how all that can kind of add up. And I'm really glad you brought up the thing about not necessarily having your friends around to talk to, because I do think for so many of us, and especially when you're a teenager, your friends are so important to you, and not having that same contact that you normally had before all this happened can really be difficult. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up.
It's been hard, and I know for me in general, my friends, and I know a lot of other people too, we've decided to Zoom every night. We almost Zoom every night. We decided to go a little old school and write letters to each other. And I feel like if more kids did that too, they may stray away from those suicidal thoughts, just to have, so they know they still have those friends. And I feel like they're also, these other people that they're friends, they should know too, if they have a friend think that may potentially be depressed or something, they could reach out. They could, ask them to Zoom, send letters, anything. Because it's, every kid kind of goes through a little bit of sadness during this time. So I just think it's a key to try to keep in touch as many ways as you can. And if you don't have a phone, letters are a great way. Send little pictures or stickers or whatever. So I think it'd be.
You're spot on. We know that for when we are talking about suicide, a lot of it is this issue about connection. And the more we can help people feel connected to one another, the more we're lowering their risk. So even though that may not have been your intention, you and your friends are doing a great job of helping each other stay connected and keeping healthy mentally and keeping safe. So I'm really glad that you're able to do that. And I'm right with you. I encourage anyone else out there to try to stay as in touch as possible with the people in your life right now.
Okay, so parents seem to worry about their kids at all times, but what are some signs that you may see as a parent that may have suicidal thoughts?
So a lot of times when we're talking about what you want to look out for in your kids, if you're a parent, or even in your friends, if you're just trying to look out for the people in your life, we know that some of the signs you might want to look out for that might indicate mental health issues or thoughts of suicide. A lot of this time we're talking about major changes in behavior or in personality. So if someone's like no longer interested in something that used to be really important to them, a favorite activity or a hobby, that might be a sign that something's going on. Or, major changes in appearance or appetite, or drastic changes in anger or irritability, all of those things. And I know for a lot of the parents out there, they might be thinking, well, that sometimes just sounds like a teenager. And yes, that's part of being a teenager, is going through changes in personality and behavior. But I definitely encourage you to trust your gut. And, if something tells you something's not right, it might be a sign that you need to look into it or have more conversations with your child about what's going on. Other things that are kind of big warning signs are if somebody has a sudden preoccupation with death, or if they make any statement or anything that indicates that they're thinking about suicide. And then, of course, we talk a lot about social media. I know there are a lot of parents out there who keep an eye on their kids on social media. And if you're a parent who does that, and you notice any posts that are going on, or if you're someone who notices a friend making posts that you're concerned about, those all might be things that might mean that someone's having thoughts of suicide. It's not 100% guaranteed that just because someone's acting a little different that they're suicidal, but it might mean that that's something you'd want to keep an eye out on and consider.
Yeah, I also feel like giving your child more like love and affection, because there is a lot going on right now, and especially maybe parents are getting laid off, or they have more kids, or maybe there's medical issues. Just like even an hour, 30 minutes, just to spend with that one child, so they know that you love them, that you care for them, and just to know that you are there for them, they're not alone. And I just feel like that's really key too.
I hear what you're saying, and you're making perfect sense to me. It goes back to that connection issue that we were talking about earlier with, how you're keeping in touch with your friends. Sometimes just because you're in the same household doesn't mean that you're really connected or contacted or spending time with someone. So the more you can do some people I know are having things like family game night and haven't done that in years, or, just sitting down for a meal instead of all going our separate ways like maybe we did before COVID. And all of those things can be really important, especially when someone's struggling with thoughts of suicide. Anything that you do to make that connection and let them know that you care can really make a difference. So even if that's not your ultimate intention, that can be a really important end result that can come from spending time with somebody. So yeah, you're making a lot of sense.
In some odd ways, the quarantine stuff could help a little bit, let a family get closer. I don't know, like maybe, like, do you think so too? Like because parents are always working, and then now they have time and they can spend time with their family. So in some ways, it's kind of good for your family and like mental health, but then other ways it's not.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely a two-sided coin. And I try to be somebody who, looks for the positive in things, especially when we're going through difficult times like now. And I think that's a great positive to look for is, with everything else that's going on, maybe spending more time with one another can be a good thing that comes out of this. And I mean, there are some other good things that can come out of this right now too. I might be jumping ahead of myself a little bit, but we do know right now that a lot of places that offer mental health services and therapy and things like that aren't necessarily, or before now weren't necessarily able to do it virtually or through things like we're doing right now. And I really think that a lot more people now might be accessing services because they're available. So there are a lot of different things coming out of this that could be positive. And I'm not saying that COVID-19 is a great thing and we're glad that it happened, because it's clearly, this is a very stressful and dangerous time for people's physical health. But I do think it's important to understand that, there might be some things like you were saying out of this that where we can make some changes going forward that are positive for ourselves, like spending more time with our family.
Yeah. We may have already answered this one, but what can parents do to help their kids? Is there anything else we could add to that?
Yeah, I actually think so. So one of the big things is going to be, self-care, encouraging self-care. And part of that's going to mean leading by example. So that means taking care of yourself, parents, and, getting help if you need help, and taking time to take care of your physical health as well, because that's part of self-care. If anyone out there, whether they're a parent, whether they're a teenager, if anyone out there is struggling, I encourage you to get help for that. And, if you're a parent who needs help for your mental health right now, help normalize that with your kids. Let them know that there's nothing to be ashamed of if you do need to take care of your mental health. Going to see someone for your mental health is just like going to see the doctor if you're physically sick. It should be part of our normal healthcare routine. Other things that we can do, a great thing that you talked about is spending time together. And that might mean, leaving opportunities for your kids to spend time outdoors, taking walks. This might mean getting creative in some situations. Eating healthy can be a big part of this too, drinking lots of water, just taking care of our physical bodies, all that self-care. On top of the self-care, though, I think you were spot on earlier, Kyah, when you said that reaching out is going to be a big thing. So spending more time with each other, letting the kids in your life know that you're somebody that they can talk to if they are going through something, that can make a big difference. Reach out to the kids in your life that you're not seeing. So your kids might be in the house with you, but, if you have nieces and nephews, or, kids who from church, different places you might know them, reach out to them too and just let them know you're thinking about them. It's always important to have conversations. So as a parent, I encourage any of you to listen to your kids. Listen when they're talking to you. Don't give them the brush off. And when I say listen, I'm not just meaning have a conversation and doing something on the side, but focus on your kids. Make eye contact. Make them the most important thing in your life in that moment. I mentioned earlier to trust your instincts. So if you do feel like something's going on with your kids, and they might be having thoughts of suicide, or their mental health might be struggling, listen to your gut on that and take the steps that you need to. That might mean talking directly about suicide and asking them, are you thinking about suicide? Are you feeling depressed right now? Asking questions like that doesn't increase risk. And I think a lot of times as a parent, that parents think that asking these questions might put that idea in their kid's head. But I want you to know that there's a lot of research out there proving that it does the exact opposite. So asking someone about their mental health, or if they're thinking about suicide, actually decreases their risk of doing something dangerous, and actually increases their positive feelings and kind of lowers their stress about it. Again, just let people know you care, and make sure you seek help or treatment for yourself, or for your kids if you are worried about them.
I just thought it's important also, it kind of goes along with yours, but not letting your kid be afraid of you, because I know some parents just like you said, they brush them off, and their kid doesn't feel safe coming to them about anything. If it's if they went to a party, or they snuck out, anything like that, they don't feel secure to tell them, because they think something bad's gonna happen, or they're gonna get abused, anything. So I think it's important to let that kid know that you are there for them, like you said, and don't let them be afraid to come talk to you about anything, because I think that's really important. And my mom's done that for me. She's made sure I can talk to her about anything, and I think it's helped me, and helped all my other friends that I've talked to, that their parents say the same thing. So just to let your kid be there.
Yeah.
And
I'm glad that you said that, and that actually brings up another topic that I was hoping we'd talk about, which is, as a parent, what don't you do? What not to do when you're talking to kids. And it's really important for parents out there, and I'm sure you'll back me up on this, Kyah, don't act shocked by what your kids are telling you. Don't be judgmental about it, and definitely don't minimize what they're saying. I know that sometimes for parents, when you feel like the weight of the world's on your shoulders, and your kid is talking to you about problems that they're having in their friends groups, or things that are stressing them, it might not seem like to you it's that big of a deal, but if it's important to your kid, it's important. So don't make light of it. Another thing that sometimes parents tend to do, because I think a lot of times in the role of a parent, people want to fix things for their kids, and sometimes not everything can be fixed by a parent. So don't offer easy answers or necessarily tell your kids how they should fix things. I think it's important to be able to have conversations and let your children and let your teens talk through what's going on. And it can be sometimes, if you like make it like, oh, you should know how to fix this, it's really simple. Again, that can be kind of minimizing and judgmental and make kids not want to talk to their parents. And then another piece of advice I would give to parents out there is try not to make it about you or how it hurts your family, like especially when we are talking about suicide. This is if your child is struggling to the point that they're having these thoughts, and you turn it around and make it about how much it hurts you that they would do that, or how much it hurts your family that they're suffering, it can really just make somebody feel worse. So I'm really glad that you brought up the different ways that parents, or the things that parents can do to make kids afraid to talk to them. And I think it's really important that we do everything we can to encourage open conversation.
Okay, so what about social media? Because there's a bunch of different, I've seen lots of things and I have opinions on it on myself, but how can social media either help or not help the situation of suicidal thoughts?
Well, so there's a lot of different things that someone can do. If you see like a post on social media for somebody that you're concerned about, there's a lot of different things that you can do. So there are things that social media has in place to really help. I think a lot of times people will use social media because it's kind of like this faceless place where you can say something and put your feelings out there. But it can sometimes seem easier for people to do that than to say one-on-one to somebody what you're going through or what you're struggling with. But some of the positives that can come out of social media is the different things that you can do to report. So to both parents and to the teens and the kids out there, I encourage you to do everything you can to learn about the different things you can do if you see somebody post something on social media that you're concerned about. So if you're a parent, not only educate yourself, check with your kids and see if they know how to report. Some of the different platforms that have built-in safety measures, like on Facebook, the little 3 dots that are over there on the right-hand side, if you click on it and you can go down to find support or report a post, and there's an option for letting them know you're concerned about somebody's safety. And Facebook has mechanisms built in to reach out to that person and give them the suicide prevention lifeline number and things like that. Snapchat has options too. You can press and hold the Snapchatter's name and tap the gear button and then tap on report, and Snapchat will just follow the questions that come from that, and Snapchat will reach out to the person as well. And no matter what platform you're on, there's almost always going to be options. Like for Instagram, you press the 3 buttons again, tap report inappropriate, and this photo puts people at risk for self-harm. So no matter what platform you're using, there's things you can do to get help for the person. And this can be especially helpful if the person isn't somebody that you necessarily know in real life, or if you don't know how to get in contact with this person or their parents. But I definitely think that it's important to familiarize yourself with these tools, because you never know when you are going to see something that makes you concerned about somebody.
Yeah, and especially for on like the negative side of like social media for teens, there's always this standard of looking a certain way or acting a certain way. And I feel like teens going into like these apps and stuff, they have this high expectation, and then in reality that's not the norm. That's not normal for every person. I feel like everyone's beautiful in their own way, and you were made that way for a reason, and you don't need to standardize yourself as someone else on social media. And I feel like a lot of like those body issues and just things like that can really tear someone down and bring them into like that depressed state, thinking they're not good enough and stuff. So I just feel like it's really important to know, like, you don't need to think of yourself like that. You need to be who you are, because there is a reason you are who you are, and just rock who you are. So
I love it, Kyah. You're so smart. And I also, what I'm hearing from you is that there seems to be a lot of pressure for anyone, but especially for teens right now, well, teens anytime on social media, this pressure to for perfection, right? And I think I'm so glad you said that. I mean, we are all perfect in our own ways, right? So, yeah, I think that's a really good point. I'm glad you brought that up too.
Yeah, and for example, and not just like social media in general, like for school too, people getting bullied. And I think we've already talked on this, but for example, if you just see someone in class and they're kind of out of the norm, for people's standards, either too shy or not dressing like everyone else. If you just go out of your way and just compliment them, or just say hey, or do you want to be in like our group for like the class project or whatever, it really, I feel like, impacts their life, and it shows that someone is caring for them, because you never know, like that day they could have been thinking, hey, like I may want to kill myself, and then that person goes up to you and you compliment them or you say hey, and that changes their whole day, and they're like, okay, maybe someone does care about me. And just like from experience of being being like that shy person, and I know it's scary just to talk to people, but now like I've kind of like gotten out of my shell a little bit, and so I say hey to people. And like a few months ago or so, someone said hey to me in the halls, and I was like, oh, I didn't realize they like remembered who I was, like when I was that person for them, like freshman year. So, and it makes you kind of feel good as a person too, being like, okay, like you never know, like that person could have, like you could see it kind of, and then now they're here a few years later, it's like saying hey to you. And like maybe a few years before that, like freshman year, they may have not said hey to you, like they may have just kept their head down and walking, but now.
Yeah, we never know the impact we have on someone else's life, right? And it goes back to that thing we were saying right at the very beginning about the importance of connection, and just seeing other people as human beings and doing everything we can to just care about one another and show that we care, and just really what a difference that can make. I really appreciate you sharing from your own experience what an impact it made on you as someone who may have had some shy tendencies, to have people reach out. And I love that you're kind of paying that forward and continuing to do that for other people. And I really think more people should do that. More people should, say hi to the person that seems like they're feeling a little anxious, or, if you're walking down the street, just smile at somebody. You never know what a difference it's going to make to their day. So yeah, absolutely.
Like for me, if I didn't have my teachers and like friends getting me out of my bubble, I probably wouldn't be doing this interview right now.
Well, I'm so glad that they have, because I'm really glad that you're here. And, it's really important to have those people in our lives that, bring out the best in us, and the people we feel safe being ourselves around. And I encourage all of you all to, if you don't know who that person is in your life, try to connect with somebody who you feel like supports you and loves you for who you are. And we know that that can actually make a big reduction in suicide risk, as well as having, for kids, having an adult who just respects you and cares about you for who you are. But for anybody, just having those bonds in your life are so important.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. Is there anything else, like from a parent's perspective, or anything like a kid should know, or like how, I don't know how to word this. Like,
no, I think I get what you're coming at. And for sure, I think it's important to for the caregivers and the parents in lives, make sure your kids know, that you're someone they can come to talk to, but even, let them know that, hey, if it's something they don't feel like they can talk to you about, make sure they know how important it is to reach out to another adult if something's going on, like if they're having thoughts of hurting themselves, or if they have a friend who is having thoughts of suicide, or who's talked about suicide. It's essential that they get an adult involved and let an adult know. And even if that adult isn't you, if you're a parent, don't let that hurt your feelings. If they're letting some adult know, that's really important. So try to communicate the importance of that. And again, just make sure that the kids in your life, and even you, make sure you know the resources that are available to you. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is an amazing resource, and we'll share that number with you. It's 1-800-273-TALK. You can also use the state crisis line at 855-CRISIS-1 for the state of Tennessee. But another resource that I think is super important that we share with our teens and our kids is the crisis text line. Because I know that for a lot of people, texting can be more comfortable, and that's why we want to make sure that people know about that resource. And the crisis text line, it's just a number that you can text from any phone with texting capabilities, and you just text the letters TN, like Tennessee, to 741-741, and there's actually a licensed professional on the other end to help talk through whatever you're going through. So, if you're somebody who is worried about what's going on with COVID right now and you feel really impacted by it, maybe you're impacted by the safer at home practices and you feel really isolated, or maybe there has been an increase in domestic violence in your home, or maybe you are having thoughts of suicide, or maybe you're having a panic attack, you can just text to that number and let the person on the other line know what you're going through, and they'll talk through it with you. And that can be really important. And they can also help connect you to resources in your area if you do need further help. So knowing about those resources can be really, really important. And I encourage everybody to, put them in your phone, or, get some. We have little bracelets that have the number on them. Find some way that number is easily accessible to you, because you never know when you or somebody else in your life might need it.
Right. And I agree. And then I think it's also very important, like I said earlier, to make sure you have a connection with your kid. Yes. Make sure you're there for them, make sure they know that they have someone they can talk to. So. Absolutely.
And just a little piece I'll put on there with that. If you're worried about that, like maybe in the past you haven't had the best relationship with your kid, there's no time like the present to start making some changes. And I will also encourage you, if you can't talk to your kids about this stuff, for whatever reason, if you just don't feel like you're going to be able to have that conversation, or you don't feel like your kid's going to talk to you about it, especially if you're worried about them or think they might be thinking about suicide, find somebody else who can have that conversation and who can ask those questions.
Yes, I agree. Well, alrighty, thank you. That was all the questions I had.
I just appreciate you so much. I'm really glad that we were able to do this, and you are a fabulous individual. I'm really excited that we got to do this today.
Thank you. It was nice meeting you.
You too.